understand this. She's on this earth to snatch your soul.
Thing I could have done?
Nope, I got it. We're
Okay.
good.
All right. Thanks.
That was actually something I knew how to fix. That isn't always
Okay.
true when it comes to technology, but that one I knew.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good reminder. Thanks, Debbie. Okay. So here we go, preparing for the holidays and grieving. So one of the things that may happen is feeling an increased sense of anxiety or sadness as these days approach. So we talked about earlier, just a couple of minutes ago, about sort of the expectations that we might feel. And so if you are typically someone who feels really excited and joyous around the holidays, and that's been replaced with anxiety and sadness because you've experienced a big loss, just try to have some patience for yourself, right? And some understanding for why that could happen. The second bullet point, you may feel exhausted or have less energy. That I think is just probably a fact. Grief takes up a significant amount of our energy, and it takes energy out of pretty much every plane of our existence, right? It takes our social energy, our mental energy, our emotional energy. It's just really exhausting. And so if there are certain things that can't get done over the holidays, certain traditions that require a lot of work and a lot of effort, and we need to change those, we're going to talk a little bit more about that too, but sort of working on giving ourselves permission to do something that maybe looks a little bit different, but feels a little bit better. The third bullet point here is something that I like to acknowledge because we represent a lot of different relationships, even in this one Zoom meeting, right? So there are those of us like me who have lost siblings. We have those who have lost children, parents, spouses, friends. And so the person that you lost is likely to play a very different role for the holidays than for the person who maybe, is to your left in the Zoom meeting, right? Because you may have lost, the person in your life who always carves the turkey and nobody else has ever carved the turkey. And what are we supposed to do about that? And now we have sort of this dilemma around carving the turkey, right? It might be that, mom is the only person who actually knew where the stockings were, and mom is not here and we haven't found the stockings. And now that's creating a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety for us. But we have people who play different roles for us too. So it might be somebody you lost that you used to see every single day. And so your every single, day-to-day routine has already been really disruptive and really changed. But if you are someone perhaps who lived further away from your family member, where you have a lot of associations with holidays and seeing your loved one, that might be even more stressful, right? To think about, oh my gosh, another holiday is coming up. That's when I would have spent time with my person. That's when I would have talked with them and we would have caught up. We would have been able to spend some good time together. So just kind of keeping those things in mind, that you may have lost the person who does play a special role in some of these ways. And does that mean it's something that we can sort of, get somebody else to do it and play that role? Does it mean that it's something that we forego altogether because it's just too hard to think of somebody else filling that role? And that's okay. There's no right or wrong to that. There's a couple bullet points in here for parents who are thinking about making things special for their children also. So this is something that we hear a lot, parents are aware that, if a child has lost a sibling or has lost a parent, that their life has been disrupted a lot already. And there's sort of this, I think, desire sometimes to try to keep things as normal as possible. What I think can sometimes happen is that we then miss opportunities to talk about how things are different, and miss opportunities to, give our children opportunities to talk about, oh, this is hard, or this does feel different, or maybe I don't want to do this year, or, I'm really missing this thing that we always did, and why haven't we done it? And so I think it's okay, to want to keep things as typical as you possibly can. But if it's possible to make space for some of those concerns, that your kids might have, or some of the things that they're communicating is really important to them, I think that can be an important step there too. And then we have, holidays. It can sort of put pressure on us to wear a happy face. If you have participated in any of our support groups, you have probably heard people using a term called masking. And we talk about masking in groups a lot because this is a really typical thing that happens for people either in social situations or maybe when they've returned to work after having a loss, where they feel like I have to literally wear a happy face mask when I'm around other people. I can't have my genuine, reactions to things. I can't really feel the things that I'm feeling. And it's really meant to be something that's protective. But there's also another side to that when we wear that mask and we protect ourselves so much, sometimes there's a bit of a falling out of that afterwards because it's so exhausting to keep that up and it's so hard to do. And so just kind of a suggestion, that, in recovery meetings and different things, the fake it till you make it kind of idea, right? Well, some of that can be true. Sometimes we can gently, encourage ourselves to do certain things and it's okay. And other times we have to, know when to change things up or when to say no. If, wearing that mask and trying to look happy is just too much for us when we're not feeling that way. And it just feels very not genuine to put that face forward. So you're going to hear me say a lot. That's okay today, because it's sort of a hallmark piece of grief work, as all of you know too. It's so individual that what works for one person may not work for another. And so if you're finding something that's bringing, is making things a little bit lighter for you, that's okay. And if it's not on this list, that's also okay. And if you think it's, helpful to share, I might ask you to do that later too. So this is one of the things we sometimes talk about in loss. Again, if you've been to a group, sort of this first bullet point that the day is going to come either way. So try to have a plan of some sort so you're not caught off guard. We talk a lot about planning in our groups, particularly when anniversaries of someone's death is coming up. That seems to be the really big one where we're just kind of encouraging people to think it through, to come up with maybe a couple ideas. Is there somebody that you can call? Is there somewhere where you want to spend time? Is there something special you want to do in honor or in memory of your loved one? Because again, that day is coming. It's on the calendar. It's not something and trust me, there were times when I wish that I could just skip it too. Just kind of like, like in checkers or something, just like jump right over it. And I wish that was the case, but it is coming. And one of the things that we've noticed and a lot of people have reported is that the anticipation and the anxiety that leads up to a big day, a big event, whether that's, a holiday, a birthday, that piece can be even more overwhelming than actually experiencing the day itself and sort of the wave of emotions that comes with that. So just another thing to try to keep in mind, that you may have a plan and you may totally follow it to a T, and that's great. You may have a plan and it goes nowhere and you don't do anything that was on your list to begin with. That's also okay. But if you're somebody who needs to do something with your anxiety, if it's helpful to do something that's a little more concrete, maybe make a plan, maybe think through that and what that'll sort of look like. I am going to pause this for just a second because I'm going to pop a link here in the chat because this is for a holiday checklist. So this came from an organization called Friends for Survival, which also offers support for those who have lost a loved one to suicide. And this is a checklist that they came up with. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna put it right there. And again, if you can't access this, that's totally fine. And I'll pull it up later because I'm going to actually show it on my screen here in a second too. But this holiday checklist might be good for my type A'ers here. That is not me. I don't know what the other types are, but I fit somewhere else. But for those who really like to make a plan, who are very task oriented and really, it just speaks to them to kind of have everything in its place and it's a little more concrete. This is a holiday checklist. So I'm going to go ahead and share this really quick. So this is what it looks like. At the beginning, let's see if I can change this actually. There we go. So at the beginning, it just kind of gives, some tips and some suggestions for things. So celebrate as usual. If you want to, avoid holidays by going away, right? These are all the different choices that people have, which is totally valid. Do something new and different. Take goodie baskets somewhere. Spend the day cleaning sidewalks, right? Do something. Have a plan, whatever that looks like. And then there are a couple other suggestions down here about how you can communicate about these things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on this page too. But this itself is what the holiday inventory job list looks like. And so this is really something to kind of help to determine which of these tasks are actually important. Or do we need to get them done? Are they actually something that we need to prioritize? Or are they something that really isn't that meaningful to us and we can leave it off the list? But then it's like, who do we like doing it, right? So that's our first category. Would Christmas be Christmas without it, right? So you could supplement that for any kind of holidays, it's not Hanukkah for us if we're not having latkes with our aunts over here, right? So would it be the holiday if we didn't do this thing? Whose job is it? So can I delegate this? Can we assign somebody to this task? Is it a one-person job? Can it be shared? Is it a habit, a tradition, or free choice, right? That is something I think is really interesting to think about for the holidays. I know I'm not the only one who can say how many things I do simply because my mom did them. That's the way I do it because that's the way my mom always did it. I used the same, laundry detergent for years that I grew up using because that's what my mom used. And so that one I think makes a lot of sense. Is it a habit? Is it a tradition? Is it free choice? Is it something I want to do? Is it something I'm going to be heartbroken if we don't do? And then should we do it differently next year? So kind of an idea for evaluating, right? So say we delegated some things, it did not go well. And we can just say, yeah, maybe we're not going to do that at all next year. So I know that this can feel maybe a little like, wow, I haven't had a worksheet to do since I was in junior high or something. But it really is meant to be a tool just to kind of help us think about things a little bit differently, to break down all of those things. I think sometimes when we're looking at a project, especially when it's like preparing for the holidays, it just feels so big that we don't know how to tease it apart. We don't know how to look for the individual pieces of that. And so I think this is just kind of a good way to start thinking about those things and thinking about, okay, what stays, what goes, what do I put effort into? What do I maybe not put as much effort into? And kind of see how that goes. And it might be scary and, changes, we know that, especially around, big traditions. So just to keep in mind. So if anyone needs that, I will send it later also. So go back into this guy. Trying to share too many things. Share. Slideshow. There we go. Okay. Our third bullet point, which I think is very important, is to find some additional support. So December falls a little differently this year. So we actually still have all of our December support groups coming up. So we do have this week our spousal support group and our young adult group. And then we have plenty of our online support groups leading up to the actual Christmas holiday. And we have a couple that fall actually, Lorraine's group, I don't know if Lorraine is in here. Our fourth Sunday group will fall right after Christmas. So we definitely have some online support. If you're looking for some additional support, please reach out to the Lost program. We can make sure that you're on the list to receive links for other meetings. And the other thing I always mention is the Alliance of Hope Forum. The Alliance of Hope Forum is an online support forum. And I like to mention it because it's a 24/7 support option, and something that was really special and helpful to me after my loss. I spent a lot of time on the Alliance of Hope, in part because it was sometimes easier for me to read the words of others and their experiences than it was for me to put my experience into words. And so I really found it very healing when I witnessed other people being able to do that and being able to talk about their loss and how it had impacted them. And so that is just something that was very special for me. It's not something, perhaps that is going to be the best resource for everybody if you're not an online person, but it certainly was there for me, and I was very grateful for it. And then this last bullet point here, the 3 C's of choose, communicate, and compromise. When it comes to things like birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas, right, our big holidays, like we talked about, they're often full of other people. It isn't that we just, that we're just kind of the only person in the equation that we're planning for. That could be the case. I don't know everybody who's on the call here today, but most of us are trying to sort of navigate this with other people in our family or in our friend group, perhaps. And so these are just important things to keep in mind. I'm going to choose, the things that are meaningful to me, but I also have to be able to communicate that with the people in my life, communicate why this is hard, or communicate why this is important to me, why I want to change something, but also compromise, that recognizing that, the other person might have some strong feelings about that too. And that's something that maybe feels hard for us, maybe would feel very healing for them. And it's worth a discussion because these are important things about important people. And so just some things to kind of help guide that discussion of just trying to, communicate with your celebratory circle and try to see what's gonna work best. I think that I had a message. Give me 1 second. Yes, thank you, Debbie. That is so true. So if you Google Alliance of Hope for Suicide Survivors, the website will come up. So there's a blog on the Alliance of Hope if you want to read writings from other survivors. And then there's also an online forum where you can either, post a question or a comment, or put a comment on somebody else's post to offer them support. But yeah, the Alliance of Hope is certainly an option. All right. Let's see. Uh-oh. We froze. All right, there we go. Here we go. Okay. So here we go. The first one, try to respect your own needs for the holiday and give yourself permission for things to look differently this year. Those who have been in a group with me or have been in individual sessions with me know that this is something that I talk a lot about because I feel so strongly that not only are the majority of the people in the lost program just very caring and compassionate people, a lot of the people that we lost could really be described in exactly the same way. And I always want to remind people how important it is to turn some of that inward, to try to give ourselves the same kind of compassion and grace that we so readily give others. And I think especially, around the holidays, if you're, sort of finding yourself making, maybe finding it's so easy to understand why maybe somebody did something that was kind of off base and, oh, they said something, maybe they shouldn't have said, but I understand where that's coming from, right? Try to turn that around a little bit and understand like, whoa, why did I say that? Like, why was that something, that was important for me, or could I have done that better? And I think it's a lesson for all of us to try to keep in mind that we all deserve that kindness and compassion for ourselves also. The idea of creating new rituals or finding new ways to incorporate your loved one into existing rituals, that is what I'm hoping a couple of our facilitators will also talk a little bit about here in a few minutes also, because that one is really sort of about, I think, taking a look at sort of some of the family norms, some of the, different traditions and things that people do. And that's when we really decide, okay, how can we bring our loved one into this and what's going to feel better? Father Ruby often makes a statement about how what could feel even worse, right, than losing someone is for them to not be remembered. And I think that especially on these days like holidays, birthdays, the more that we can sort of focus on bringing our loved one in instead of putting our concentration and our effort into maybe not thinking about them because it's just too hard to do. And it just makes me so sad. But instead trying to find maybe small ways that we can incorporate them. And I'll tell you a little bit about how my family does that also. But it might also be about adding a new ritual that's specifically about your loved one, right? So, it might be talking, having everyone share, like, what is, at Thanksgiving, what is something, that you were thankful for your time with our loved one? Or one of my favorite ones, especially around the holidays, is what is a special gift that your loved one gave you? And that doesn't have to be concrete things, right? A gift can be so many things. And so just kind of, thinking about that, what are the things that we still have from our loved one? What did they give us that they've left us with? The presents that are kind of ours to keep, I think can also be a really special way to kind of take a look at that. And this part I talked a little bit about already, about children, having children in your family. So if you do have children, trying to communicate with them honestly, that things might feel different, that things might be sad. But I think it's always really important to assure them that you're going to get through it together. We're here together. We're still a family. If you're feeling a certain way, come and talk to me about it. One of the things that Cindy, our children's therapist, writes about is how powerful it can be for children to see their parents grieve, for them to see sort of that genuine reaction of their own grief, with the expectation that they're also going to talk about that, right? That they're going to put words to that, and that I can say, mommy's just really sad. And it's because, I'm missing your brother, I'm missing your daddy. And that's okay. It's okay for you to express sadness, and to let your kids that it's okay for them to be sad. It can just be really, I think, powerful modeling. But again, that reassurance of we're still a family, we're getting through this together. Things might feel or look a little different. If you are feeling sad, that's okay. We can take a break, we can change things up. I like to, I think that when we give them a chance, kids can do some really incredible things. So if they've got some suggestions, I think it's important to listen to those as well. This last bullet point, and she isn't here, so I can say this. I really put on here as an inspiration from my mother, because my mother is absolutely the person who is used to being in charge. I would say our family is pretty matriarchal when it comes to big holidays. It was, my grandma for a long time. My mom has kind of taken over. But what I've realized is that, especially after losing my brother, those things took a significant amount of effort before, during a time of really acute grief and sadness. I think that they were nearly impossible. And I think that is true for a lot of people. And so we have started incorporating shortcuts into our holidays that have been totally okay for us. We have had a Christmas Eve dinner of Olive Garden. That was a really popular one for us for a few years, because we could just get trays of pasta and feed everybody and not have to worry about someone actually cooking a meal. And sort of like putting all the things in place for that. So that could be a really helpful thing. But we also, we try to adjust our expectations sort of for one another a little bit. So we kind of had these talks about how, Christmas is just going to probably be a little bit smaller this year, or, we're going to need to do things a little bit different. And so we've, I think, done okay in the communication department around those things. But this delegation piece kind of goes back to what I was saying before about you may have lost somebody who was really essential and sort of central to your gatherings. And I know that it is very, very difficult for my mom to delegate. She is a caretaker. And that is like one of the ways I think she also likes to show care for her family, is having a nice meal for them. But we really needed to let her know that it was okay, that was not something that we needed, that we were going to be okay if we didn't have a big family meal, because that wasn't necessarily the most important thing. And something that I've learned about recently, and this may be old knowledge to all of you, and you already know this and incorporate this, but I've just really been reflecting on it recently about how there's this idea that if you really want to help someone do something, you have to take responsibility for the whole task, not just a piece of the task. And that really resonated with me because it talked about needing to be in charge of the conception, the planning, and the execution of whatever it is that you're going to do. And my mom is where I really realized where that comes into play. It doesn't help her so much if I say, oh, why don't we have this for dinner? But I'm not helping her with the ingredients. I'm not offering to help her cook, right? I haven't taken on any of that burden. So if we are able to delegate things to people and communicate that, knowing that it's really important to take on that whole task. Like, not only are you going to plan it, you're also going to execute it and really take it like off of my plate so that it's not stress that I'm dealing with. Those are hard things to do. The other thing I didn't mention, and I meant to talk about this a little bit earlier too, especially in the planning phases of things, is how disruptive grief is to our executive functioning processes. And so when I talk about executive functioning, I'm talking about all the things that our brain does to kind of keep us planned and organized, right? So all those things that we do that help us kind of, okay, come up with a plan or make a list, get started on tasks, prioritize things, knowing what needs to come first, remembering things, even if we didn't write them down, right? Just being able to recall things. During grief, especially after traumatic grief, right? And we've all had a traumatic loss. Trauma can really, really impact our executive functioning skills. So that's when we hear a lot of times, especially when people have returned to work, right, who maybe are saying like, I just feel like I'm in a brain fog all the time. I'm not able to make decisions. It's really hard for me to keep my schedule. I didn't even remember that I had this appointment the other day. That's so unlike me. I'm not a forgetful person, right? And so it's a good reminder that that isn't just, you choosing to, somehow become less of a planful person or less organized. That's really our brains, right? Like having that process and saying, this is not what's important right now. Our trauma has kind of hijacked these kind of parts of our brain and has said, no, like you can't focus on this. We're going to make you focus over here. And so if that's the case and your executive functioning is just, really, really difficult at the moment, planning for the holidays is going to be hard too. So if there are shortcuts that you can take, things that you can put into place that are just going to make things a little bit easier, a little bit calmer, I certainly suggest it if it's possible. Okay. Here we go. So I'm not going to do this one in order, actually. I think I'm just going to kind of talk through it. But these are just some stories and suggestions of things either we've heard through the program. I'll tell a little bit of my personal experience too. And then afterwards, I'll ask if some of our facilitators would also be willing to share. But these are just some kind of concrete examples of things that people have done, either to sort of change up their own family traditions or just to be able to honor and remember their loved one on special days. So last year I had watched a webinar, excuse me, that was actually through Friends for Survival, which is where the holiday checklist also comes from. And one of the mothers who shared during that presentation said that she has a tree that she sets up. It's a small tree and it's just for her son. And so it has all of his special ornaments from when he was a child, some of the artwork that, he made throughout the years, and that it's her son's tree. And that's really important to her, and that she usually decorates it by herself as a little, special moment between her and her son to be able to remember him, and to be able to put those mementos up on the tree. And it's sort of her quiet reminder that, even though he isn't with her, that he's still there for the holidays, and that she still makes an effort to incorporate him and his memory. We've had several folks throughout the years with the Lost program who do volunteer work or do service hours, who really make it their goal and their mission to help others. We have had people create foundations that, help with education or with bullying awareness, with mental health awareness. We've had people who have created comfort and care kits for people who are experiencing homelessness, or winter coat drives, all sorts of things that people have found it really helpful to do something good for other people in the name of their loved one. And I've just felt that made a difference and made things a little lighter for them. I think that, this idea of making room for sadness and grief is a really important one. That there is, that there is this concept of needing to sometimes step away. So even if you're sort of in the hustle and bustle of the holidays, or, the birthday or whatever it is, for you to give yourself permission to step away, to find a quiet moment if something is sort of overwhelming or is coming up for you, to just take a minute to take a breath and to have that private experience of what it is that you're kind of thinking about or feeling at that moment. One of the things that we've talked about before too, especially when it comes to holiday parties and that sort of thing, is making sure you don't get parked in, right? Because that would just be really awful if I feel like I can't stay here very long and I need to go and I need to get in my car and I just need to leave, right? So even little tricks and tips like that of just like, I'm going to have someone drop me off and then they're going to pick me up at this time, so that I know I already have a set amount of time that I'm going to be there and I don't need to worry about it after that, right? So just these things that can give us kind of these safety plans to make us feel like we're not trapped, that we have some options for ourselves. And tossing old rituals and making new ones. I remember our first year, my dad saying, well, I think we should just all go to Mexico. We didn't. We still haven't gone to Mexico. But I think that his idea was that, any kind of anything that looked the same as it always did was going to be really painful, that it was just going to hurt too much if we tried to continue our traditions. And so there's nothing wrong with that. If people sort of start from scratch because that's what works for their family and they come up with something new, that's okay. If people start traveling when they would always, be in the same place, and now that physical space is just holding a lot of sadness and we want to, change it up a little bit, that's okay too. So, all of those are sort of open. But for my family, there's a couple of things that we do. And again, this will look very different for everybody. We're not a family that typically visits the cemetery, for example. We have a lot of lost members who do that. Going to the cemetery, visiting their loved ones is a huge part of special events and special occasions. It's one of the ways that they do incorporate their loved one, is going and maybe talking with them about what's happening that day or giving them an update. That hasn't been the case for my family, and that's okay. For us, we are very big on pictures, and so we definitely do a lot of looking at pictures and sort of reminiscing about things. But when I lost my brother, I was actually working for a different social service agency, and I was working in the Jewish community. And that was when I had learned about the tradition of yahrzeit, which is a memorial, a Jewish memorial after somebody has died. And so I really loved the idea that their memorial candles, the yahrzeit memorial candles, are meant to be burned for 24 to 48 hours. And so they're meant to be burned the whole time, so you don't have to kind of blow them out and relight them. I just happen to live very close to a place where I can easily get yahrzeit candles in the Jewish community. And so every year I've brought home a yahrzeit candle, and we tie a ribbon around it and put it next to our favorite picture of my brother at Christmas, which is actually up on my mantelpiece. And so we make it sort of, his name was Joel. It's our little Joel corner. And so what I love about it is that it creates a special place for him that we can all kind of visit on our own, that we can kind of walk by, and sometimes I'll just place my hand there and I'll just say, oh, we're missing you, or I love you, or, we're thinking about you today. But it kind of takes that pressure off of us to have to kind of sit and look at each other and have a big conversation. It's more a way for us to have our kind of private moments with my brother and remember him, and really just keep him as a part of our day. I had never had a Christmas morning without my brother before he died, even though we were both in our mid-20s. He was still living at home and I was still, going back and forth for all the holidays. And so I felt immensely anxious my first Christmas. I really was worried, and didn't know how it was going to feel, didn't know if I was going to make it through without being really distraught. And so I am very grateful that, this will be our 8th Christmas. I still really miss him on Christmas morning. I really miss how excited my brother got with every gift, how grateful he was. I miss his hugs and how warm they were, and just how appreciative he was of people thinking of him and being able to spend time with our family. And so I definitely miss him a lot in the holidays, but I try really hard to remember the love, remember the good memories. So that's just a little bit about my story too. I know, we talked a little bit about this last year, and unfortunately the same is true, that 2021, I think, is again limiting some of our options for finding, ways that maybe feel good for coping, or different opportunities for us to see people, or to, even get together with loved ones. And so if that is true for all of you, just keep in mind, you're certainly not alone, that this has been a very long process here with COVID and not being able to do things the way we typically do. So that is something I definitely understand. So now let me see the time. Yeah. Okay. So we are at about 6:45. So what I'm hoping is a couple of things. So what I'm hoping is that we have a couple of our facilitators here. So I know that, and I'm going to stop my share. I know that both Lori and Sandy, I talked to earlier, who both said that they would be willing to talk for just a couple of minutes with us, and just kind of share some things perhaps about their own family, about what's been hard or what's been helpful. And then if any of our other folks would like to share, I know, like I said earlier, I know we have some folks who are newly bereaved. So if we've got any of our folks whose losses are a little bit further out, who maybe want to share what's been helpful for their family, please feel very welcome. So, oh, Kristen, thank you. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to ask Sandy, would you mind starting, just because I see you over there, and I see you're unmuted, and then I'm going to ask Lori to go after that, if that's okay.
Okay, I think I'm muted.
You are. You're good.
Okay, good. I just want to thank you so much for this program, Emily, tonight, because I'm remembering back to the first year after my son Russ died, and I sort of chose, and I let everybody know that I was ignoring Christmas that year. He died in August, and I just did gifts for my infant and my toddler granddaughters, but everybody else, I said, we'll see how this goes. And but by the next year, the following year, I was working along on my grief journey, and I've always had stockings for all my adult children and in-laws and stuff. So I put out the stockings, and I put out Russ's stocking, and I went to the December loss meeting, and the facilitator gave each of us a very tiny little angel. And it was part of the evening and us talking about getting through the holiday. And so I brought it home and I pinned it on Russ's stocking. Well, the following year, it was a little white dove, and I clipped that onto his stocking. And then shortly after that, I became a facilitator. And so each December, I handed out a little memento to remember that year. Well, by now his stocking is quite the collection. And it jingles and jangles, and there's things pinned to it and things in it. And when I take it out and when I hang it up, I of course think of him, but I also think of all the people who have been walking this journey with me all these years, and how much life is different and much better than that very first year when I just had to ignore Christmas. So that's my little story, and it points out in one way how much loss has meant to me. And thank you for letting me share it.
Thank you so much for that, Sandy. I just really love that story because it incorporates so much of what we talked about, right? This idea of, the first year, nope, we're not doing anything. And then that's going to be okay. And then after that, being able to incorporate your own way to remember him. And I think that's a lovely thing that you do for Russ and for you. I think that's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. All right. Lori, could I ask you to share?
Yes, thank you. So I feel, so my son, Edward, died by suicide in 2012. So we've had a number of Christmases now without him. And I think I've actually done some of the things that Emily mentioned at the beginning, finding some relief in changing our traditions, doing some things differently, and kind of giving our family permission to opt out of things that would be too difficult, like extended family gatherings where family can invite other friends who don't know about our loss and who might, it just would be too uncomfortable to be in those big settings. Another thing, when Emily mentioned how the holidays, even without our grief, can be difficult for people. They're so highly emotionally charged, and they were difficult in the last couple of years of my son's life. He had an eating disorder, and it was tough when he was around all the amounts of special foods and sweets and so on. And he was getting more uncomfortable with the large family gatherings too. And so I would, Christmas makes me remember when the children were really little and everything was much more fun, and then what it was like for them as they got older themselves. Now what we do is it's my husband and my 24-year-old daughter who has developmental disabilities. So it's the three of us together, and we have created new rituals. And so what we used to do was, have Christmas presents that we would give to each other on Christmas Day, and try to get something of significant value or something special. And but kind of the difficulty of thinking of things and that idea of a particular celebration was pretty hard. And we came up with this new tradition based on sometimes those pretty little advent calendars you see with the little boxes, and you could maybe put one tiny thing like a Hershey's Kiss inside. We decided to basically do an advent calendar gift, but extended. It wouldn't have to go into one of the little boxes. So from December 1st to the 24th, we exchange gifts with each other. I buy one for my husband and daughter. She buys one for the two of us. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to have any particular, it's not a big gift. It's just any little thing we see that we would like to give to each other. And it's given us something to do every night. And it's totally new and different than anything we've done before. And it is a comfort to do something different. I also, though, like you, Emily, we use the Yahrzeit candles for Thanksgiving and Christmas to have it burning, to just remember them for that whole 24 hours. And the last thing I just want to say is, I think if you try to create new rituals or do something different, you might find the first thing you try doesn't really work. And you might have to try a second and third and fourth thing. And we did the thing of the first year just going away and doing something completely different. And it didn't feel quite right to be in a hotel and eat out. And that didn't feel any better. So we kind of made it back to our house and just keep trying if the first thing you try doesn't work out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lori. I really appreciate that. And you're right. What a good reminder that when we're trying new things, that it might not always work at first. I think that's a really good reminder. There's some growing pains with that. But I love the concept of, sort of extending things out the way that you did too, because I think, that anticipation, that huge buildup, and nobody knows that better than, a kid on Christmas, like what that feels like. And so I think, being able to kind of smooth that out a little bit and take a little bit of pressure off this big day, this big event, is actually really nice to kind of release some of that. Thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate you sharing. That's great. Kristen, are you here? Would you mind sharing? There she is.
Sorry, I was muted.
Hi.
I am, and thank you for this terrific program. It's really refreshing to think about how to move towards these days of such significance. We are in a time on the calendar that should have such light, and for many of us, we're being asked to hold the bitter and the sweet simultaneously, and that can be very difficult, especially in those first days and that year of firsts. I'm left feeling, as I did when my daughter was in Girl Scouts and I was a Girl Scout leader, and we invited some people in to speak about their holiday celebrations. And we had someone come in and talk to us about Ukrainian Christmas, and someone else come in and talk about Kwanzaa, and someone else come in about Hanukkah. And I thought, my God, we have the most boring traditions in our family. So as I listen to these lovely moments of symbolism that you've created, I'm once again reminded how remarkably boring we are. And my comments would be, our first year, we were sort of, it's like with pizza, anything but anchovies. We were anything but home. So we went to Massachusetts to visit family. Our second year, I should say, our son Hunter died by suicide in 2015. And he is the second of 4 children, and he was affectionately called Hurricane Hunter. So when those winds were not blowing, it was really obvious that there was a void in the house. And our second year, my college roommate was going to be elsewhere. So we went to her house in Utah. And by the third year, my parents-in-law had lived in their home for 40 years, and it felt like, well, we should be home for them. And, these things that you don't understand have symbolism for your extended family, have greater import than, as you think about when you say in the morning, okay, everybody on the stairs take a picture. And all of a sudden, 25% of the body space isn't there. And so you will find moments in the moment that you can think, oh man, how did I not anticipate that? And do we still do it, or do we not do it? And you'll try something, as Lori said, and you may find success with it and you may not. I am someone who often feels that she should do things, and whether that's accepting an invitation to something or making a homemade fill in the blank for fill in the blank. And I would suggest you give yourself grace for those. That first year, we went to a couple of should events around the holidays. And I found myself in the middle of them thinking, what in God's name made me think that I should do this? And this was stupid. I should have just said no. But what I had the good fortune of doing were a couple of things. One, park close, great idea. You can always leave and it's a short walk back to your car. Have a wingman or someone who is going to basically body block for you if they see that person coming along who always faithfully sticks their foot in the mouth, and your friend will sort of step in and pivot and redirect a conversation. And I often found myself standing in a room a foot into the room so that I always had the option of backing out of the room. And by birth, I'm a native Bostonian, and we employ what we call the Irish goodbye, which is you just leave and you don't say goodbye to anyone, because when you start to say goodbye, then you're there for another hour. So don't be afraid, whether you're Irish or not, to use the Irish goodbye. And I think it is, we find that sitting at a table and having an empty chair does not work for my family or children. Sitting and having a picture of them would be a point of mockery for my children to me. And so I was really not interested in that. And yet we have a lot of one-on-one conversations, and those are as rich remembrances of Hunter as if we had 20 people at a table. I have a sister-in-law who has not told her daughter how our son died, and it's 6 years since his death. So that begins to change how you can talk about things. And there are sort of walls that are placed because of that. And in deference to trying to preserve those relationships, we don't have huge conversations about Hunter, but as I said, he really was a force of nature. And my children apparently have gallows humor, and because they will say something and then sort of look up and say too soon, and that is how they were processing things. And so we tried to give them the space to do that. My husband would be happy to not celebrate Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays. They are difficult times, and so we move through the process and really cherish when it's just our immediate family, so that if you want to tell someone that they're really being a jerk, you have the license to do that. So those are some of our ways of grappling, which I applaud those of you who are more creative and honorable in how you remember your loved one. But to the point that was made, hearing their name spoken, it's just music to the ears. And so anytime that we can remember them is, even if it's in a discreet way, it's really enjoyable. But that's easier said 6 years down the road.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I really appreciate, you sharing just a little bit about, your family and how, each of you has responded to things in your own way. I think that humor can be a really powerful coping mechanism. But when your humor doesn't match somebody else's, that can be rough. So I'm glad you all are on the same page with that. That's good. But you're reminding me of something that I don't think I emphasized enough, which is that you're allowed to say no. And so I just want to reiterate that too, because I think you made such a good point. I think there are so many places in grief when we're kind of shooting ourselves, like we should do this, I should have done this, I should do this. And, I think your message of just sometimes we need to give ourselves that permission to say no is a really important one. And it also reminds you of my brother, because my brother did not love a social gathering. And so we all had this unspoken message that at some point in the evening, someone was going to have to drive him home. So it was just going to depend on which person got the ask. But one of us was going to be gone for a little while to drop him off so that he could go have his own time and decompress and just kind of, do his own thing. But I want to reemphasize that we can say no. The reason we think we can't is because it makes us feel badly, but we can. So that's a really important message. Thank you. Thank you. Let me look at our gallery here. Do I have anybody else, any of my facilitators or anyone who's a little further out who might want to share something about their experiences? Any thoughts? Checking it out. Oop. Let's see.
Hi, Emily.
Oh, hi there.
You know, it's hi. It's coming on my daughter's, it's the second anniversary of her death. And I think I joined this, I think it was I think not even 3 months.
Wow.
When I joined Loss. So, you know, fortunately for me, I don't have a ritual, and I guess I need to talk to my other daughters to see if that's something that we should do. Um, you know, fortunately for me, I didn't bury her. Her urn is right here, and um, it's a good thing to have. I guess I never thought about the rituals. When I saw the email, that really made me want to join just to see what everyone else was doing. Unfortunately, I got here a little late. I cannot stand that. But from what I've heard, the last young lady speaking about her, you know, that Irish goodbye I love. And even when the other young lady was saying, you know, you try things and maybe that doesn't work and try something else. I like that idea, and I think that because her younger sisters are now 19 and 18, that they can take the reins, so to speak, and do what they want to do.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
it can also help take a little bit of pressure off of you too, Erica, right? That you don't feel like you're the only person who does have to make those decisions and choices, that you can have a conversation about it. And I think that that's a lovely thing too, that it doesn't have to just be you.
Yeah. So it's the 19th, and I don't even know if I want to do anything for that. I don't know what to do. I just know that my birthday was on the 28th of November and I didn't celebrate it. I don't want to celebrate anything, you know, around this time. I just noticed that as not a big deal for me. I just realized that these things don't matter because we're not here. We're really not. We're in a car. We're having a human experience. And so my daughter had her human experience. So I just don't want to do anything. So I guess I should have my daughters think of something.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that that's just a really valid point, that it's still okay to not do anything, that it's still okay. But I think that that's where the communication part comes into, because maybe for them, they do want to do something, right?
Right.
They want you to be a part of that, but it's also, okay for you to, be able to say, I don't think that that's something I can do, or I don't think that that would be helpful. It's a hard process. And I think that, there have definitely been times in my family where we've had to compromise on some things. So I understand that too, but you are still so, and I know because you've lived several months with your loss that it doesn't feel that way, but you are still so new to that too, that it might still just
No.
time,
No, it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
No, I joined Loss. I joined this group 2 years ago, but when I joined it had been only 2 months. And I had only been 2 months.
No, but I even mean it 2 years. I still think that 2 years is pretty recent, honestly, because I know how much my grief has changed from 2 years to 7 years, and it's significant. So I thank you for sharing, Erica, because I know, just kind of thinking about going into it's intimidating for a lot of people.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you and Deborah for always, doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh,
I
we're
really
glad you
appreciate
could join us. We really are. We really are. All right, let's see. Do I see any other familiar?
We
Oh,
do
I see
have
Jean.
facilitators. We've got Jean King, Eileen Hearn, Mark and Mary Edwards are here.
but I'm not going to put you on the spot. But if you're willing, please do jump in. I do see Jean. Thanks, Jean.
Well, Debbie did put us on the spot, but
Sorry.
that's what Debbie does.
She
So
wanted to help me out. That's all.
that's what Debbie does. As far as rituals for our family, my ex-husband died in August of 2002. So this will be our 19th Christmas. So I'm really far out. It's racking my brain to remember what we did. My ex was married again, and he had little people, a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. My sons were 12 and 15 when their dad died, or that Christmas. My sons had always spent Christmas Eve with their father, so I went along to spend Christmas with his father's family, and they always spent the night with their dad. So they went home with their stepmom and their little brother and sister. I stayed home alone and cried because they were doing this without me. But that was, and without their father, basically. The next morning, I got up, and I usually went to church with my parents. And I remember standing in the shower thinking, Ed is not ruining my Christmas tradition of going to church with my parents. So I'm going to church with my parents. So I did that, and then went out to their stepmom's house to get them. We had lunch together. That was the start of a little bit of a new tradition. The following years, we arranged it where I was out there early in the morning, and Trish would make breakfast, and the excitement with the little ones. And so I guess that was our new tradition until Trish remarried and moved away. But that was okay. We did it when we needed to. I think the most important thing for us then was that we be together, that Trish and Abby and Mike and me and Ed and Brian all be together. Did we talk about their dad? No, not really, but we were together. And that was really important to us. I did also want to reiterate that you can say no. If someone asks you to do something and you just don't feel like you're up to it, say no. And even if you say yes at the beginning and the day comes when you made a commitment, you can call somebody up and say, yeah, it's not going to work for me today. Treat yourself with a lot of care, and just take care of yourself. Hopefully people will understand. And if they don't, well, it's really important that you care for yourself and not feel like you have to make everyone else happy, because grief is a lot of hard work, and you have to do it. And other people just need to understand or get over it, I guess. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. What I love about what you shared was not only were you grieving, but you were able to also be able to blend your families together for the idea that, like, what is important is that we've all lost someone important to us that we loved, and we want to be together. That to me is just beautiful. And families who don't have that added stress don't do that well. So that's really incredible. And I really thank you for sharing. And I'm so glad that those things have continued, the things that helped in the beginning created new, customs for you all. And I think that's great. Thank you so much, Jean.
We still find time at Christmas time to be together. So whether it's on Christmas Day or not, we're together.
I love that. That's so meaningful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. I'm just scanning here really quick in case there's anybody else who wants to share. But that's okay. Okay. Oh, Is that Jim? Hi, Jim.
I guess.
I'd like to just say about our first Christmas when Chris lost her mom. Christmas, well, in preparation of Christmas, let's say the month before, Chris's mom would be here and she would help us put up our tree and all the other decorations. Our house turns into Marshall Fields at Christmas time. And she would be here for everything. Well, that year we didn't have her, of course. So Chris didn't want to do anything, and I persuaded her into putting up a tree. From there, I persuaded her into doing the banisters going up to the second floor. From there, I talked her into doing a little more and a little more and a little more. Pretty soon we had the whole house decorated. And there was always that, 600-pound gorilla in the room, but we did everything as close to normal as we could. When it came time to Christmas, Christmas is my birthday, so she had to do something for that, of course. And we had my cousin come over like we always did, but Chris's mom wasn't there. So we did set up an extra plate, we did that. But doing all this, finally, Chris realized she needed help and we needed help because it was, just tearing us apart also. But we started seeking help, and that's how we found Loss. And the following year, and like I always say, it's just been a great experience for us, and it's really helped us. So I just wanted to add that. We did things a little different. We didn't just put everything to the side. We just, I just kept pushing a little more and a little more, and it seemed to work for us. Can't work for everybody, but it seemed to work for us.
Emily, I would like to add something now, if that's possible. Thanks, Jim, for that. Is it okay?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Mary. Let me change the spotlight. Thank you so much, Jim.
No problem.
Okay, just 3 short things that Mark and I did, particularly at Christmas. The first couple of years, I could not, the word tradition was really difficult for us. So we tried to, any non-traditional foods we could come up with. It couldn't be turkey with dressing. It had to be beef, or maybe even fish. I think we used one year. We just tried nothing traditional, but the people that surrounded us. And that was always a blessing to have our loved ones around. We also, and continue to light a candle. And for us, it's been 16 years since we lost our son, Mark. So we light a candle and we put his picture there next to the candle. And sometimes we just set it aside so it's safe and none of the little ones can get at it. And it's just there, especially now after 16 years. And the third thing, which we found very helpful because our son was 19, he had cousins that were in that same age group. What we did is by our son's stocking that was hanging on our mantle, fireplace mantle, we put a paper and pencil, and we asked anyone interested to share, or not share, but to write a note to Mark, our son, and that they could put the note, fold it up, put it into the stocking, and we would never open it. If we would never take it out, they still are in there. And we found that, boy, a lot of his cousins wrote a message because I think they were struggling, and this was a way to talk to him. And not everybody. It might have only been 6 or 7. Like I said, we really don't know because we haven't opened it, but we can feel them in there, and we respect the privacy. But I thought that gave an opportunity. We had an aunt, one of our son's aunts, one of my sisters wrote something. And I thought that was really helpful for the people that were there joining us for the holidays. So that was just my our little 2 cents of what and some of the traditions we still do now. I mean, like the candle. I think the candle and the picture are forever. I just think that's something, we have a vase, we put the candle in it. It's lit actually right now. I certain days I feel lighting it when I feel close to him. So it's a great tradition. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. You know, those two things back to back, you know, Jim talking about how, you know, he thought it would be so healing to gently encourage, you know, some of those traditions. And then, you know, you and Mark being like, nope, out the window. we're changing it up. We're doing something different. And I just love that, because it's really just an example of, you know, people doing what works. And I think that example you just shared of allowing others to leave a message for Mark, right? You know, to say, you know, I'm thinking of you, or I'm missing you. And to know that, you know, that's not for me to invade your privacy. It's for you to share a special message for him. That's beautiful. I'm sure that there's somebody on this call who's going to do something similar, because that's a really neat idea. Thank you so much, Mary.
Sure.
Thank you. Great. And I don't know, we had anyone else who wanted to share. We can do that now. Otherwise, we'll.
I'm getting involved in.
Oh, wait, Eileen, hold on 1 second. I think Mary Lou wanted to share.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and then I'll ask you to share. Thank you so much. Okay, go ahead, Mary Lou.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Pretty much, this is the first for me. He left, my husband left this year in February. So this is going to be our first Christmas without him. So I don't really know what we're going to do. So this has been really helpful. Thank you for this. And that's why I wanted to hear this, because I didn't know, you know, but I can tell you that Thanksgiving, since it was the first kind of like holiday, it was really hard, and I didn't think it was going to hit me that hard, but it did. It did. And then on top of that, today, I lost my dad. He passed away from COVID. So now there's another loss that, everything that everybody had said, it's been really helpful, and you know, it's giving me ideas and what we could do to remember him, and to maybe do like new traditions. And I have 2 sons, so it's just the 3 of us now. So thank you. I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much, everybody, for this.
Oh, Mary Lou, please know that we will be keeping you in our thoughts and prayers. And I'm just so sorry that you lost your dad. And just today, I just know that you have to be feeling overwhelmed. But we will certainly be thinking of you and offering our support in any way we can to get through these next several weeks. I'm really glad you're with us. I'm just so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I see Judy, did you have a comment?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yep, hold on.
I'm
There we go. I gotcha.
okay. I'm on my cell phone. My iPad didn't work. I just wanted to this will be my first year. My son killed himself in March. Our pain, our biggest pain is the fact that no one in my family likes each other. So there's going to be 3 children or adults that will have taken me out of their lives and blame me for his death. And there's 2 of my children who have reached out and said, I don't care if we've had fights or we've not always gotten along. Come back, Mom, and let's spend time together. And I just, The only reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I wanted people to remember there are going to be a lot of us who are going to hurt, who are going to miss that child, because the family in and of itself is no more. And so it's gonna be a really tough year, but I just wanted the ones that go through what I'm going through to be remembered, because I know it's gonna be really hard for them. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. I just want to comment on that before I switch to Eileen, because I know she had a couple of comments, and just say that, I know that you're not the only one who's joined us who has some conflict with it, with your family members, or, differences of opinions, or, people who have blamed one another after loss. So please do keep coming to our groups and talking about that, because I know there's a lot of people here who understand that, and we'll be holding you in our hearts during the holiday. That's for sure. That's for
Thank
sure.
you.
Okay, we only have a couple minutes left, so I wanted to switch over to Eileen because she had a comment. And I just wanted us to wrap up after that. Thanks, Eileen.
Oh, thank you. Mary Lou and Judy, I'm so sorry. I was really looking forward to this, Emily, because even though it's my 8th year, it's my first year without my daughter being here. Marita is doing a pastry assignment down in Disney. So it was weird. It's a very strange year. I didn't want to put on the ornaments. I don't have any lights on outside. And I realized so many of the things I did was for her and for us, right? So it's really feels different this year, and a different kind of a loss. And that's how come I just, really feel for everyone out there that it is their first year, because I kind of have a first in the fact that Marita's not here with me. So I think this was wonderful to hear, giving ourselves permission not to have to do the traditions, because Marita and I are very traditional, and I needed to hear that tonight. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Eileen, and also such a good reminder that, sometimes we don't realize how much we're sort of doing for another person until that changes, right? And so that, like when you and your daughter are together, it's very important, and when you're apart, maybe not so much, and that's, just an example of how that shifts and changes. So thank you so much, Eileen. I really, really appreciate it. So I don't want to keep everybody too long, because we're going on almost 7:30. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have several support groups meeting this month. So they're all meeting online. We have a full calendar of things that are of groups that are scheduled throughout the rest of the month for the next few weeks. So please let us know if you want links to additional groups, and we'll make sure that you get that information as well.
Emily, I just had a question for someone who talked about the stocking.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to know, what did she do with the messages? That's all, because I thought that was a great idea.
She said she keeps them in there, and that she hasn't read them, and that they stay in there. They're private.
Right. What does she do with the stock? Does she keep the stocking in a box, or does she put it away? Or that's what I wanted to know. I don't know.
Did you hear that, Mary?
Yes. Can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
on?
we can hear
Yeah.
you.
Okay, great. Yes, we just keep it with our Christmas decorations, and when we pull that box out, we can just feel the paper inside the stocking. We just leave them there. We really do totally respect it. It's such a private thing, and I wanted them, my family and our family, to know that. So I just leave them in there. It's truly a message between that relative with our son. It's their way of talking to him. Maybe they're mad at him. He had 19-year-old cousins, like he was 19. And sometimes
Exactly.
kids are, yeah, teenagers can be hard on each other. So
What will
they
you
might have
do with
been,
it? What
pardon
will
me?
you do? What will you do with the stocking?
We
for
probably, you bring up a good question, because my husband and I have talked about that often. If something had happened to us, we have other children, and we would request probably that they build a little fire in their backyard and burn anything that would be burnable. That's what we would prefer. And so, like I did with his Boy Scout things, we did that. Like, we didn't know what to do with his Boy Scout. Like he had earned awards that were his badges. I don't have any idea what to do with a badge that my son has earned, so we decided to burn them. So that's what we would do.
Thank
is
you so
ask
much.
our kids to burn them. Mhm.
Thank you, Emily, for letting me ask that.
No, of course. I'm glad we could clear it up. And so, yes, again, just a reminder that we have plenty of support groups. Please do join us for those. And so I'm going to just take a couple minutes now. It'll literally only take a couple minutes to go through one of our rituals that we do. So if you are planning to attend a support group this month, you may do this ritual, you may do another one. But I thought it might just be nice for us to do together as we wrap up tonight. And again, please know that we will be, keeping each of you in our thoughts and our prayers as we go into the holiday season. And please do reach out to us for any additional support. So I'm going to share my screen again here for a second. Switch over to this guy and then I'll do it. This is actually taken from, and so some of you may have heard part of this if you came to our Evening of Remembrance service, but just kind of a nice thing for us to wrap up together. So it's sort of a call and response. So I'll read, and then if you want to unmute your microphone, you're very welcome to. And our response is just, we remember them. So we'll just go ahead and end with that. So at the rising sun and at its going down,
We remember
Remember them.
the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter,
We remember them.
Remember them.
at the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring,
We remember them.
Remember them.
at the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer,
We remember them.
Remember them.
at the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of the autumn,
We remember them.
Remember them.
the beginning of the year and when it ends,
We remember them.
Remember them.
when we are weary and in need of strength,
We
You
remember them.
remember them.
when we are lost and sick at heart,
We
We
remember
remember
them.
when we have decisions that are difficult to make,
We
Remember them.
when we have joy we crave to share,
We remember them.
Remember them.
when we have achievements that are based on theirs,
We remember them.
Remember them.
and for as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as
As
We
we
remember them.
Remember them.
Well, thank you all so much, everyone. Please take care. Please have a very safe and healthy holiday season. And again, please do not hesitate to reach out to us for additional resources and groups. We certainly would like for all of you to join us for some extra support this month. So thank you all so much. We really appreciate
Thank you, Emily.
joining us.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Bless everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Good night.
This is very
Night,
good.
Judy.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye, Ian.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good
God bless
night.
everybody.
Bye.
Could,
Thank
um,
you.
Can you send the list of extra meetings and things to me
Yes.
at least, so I can get through this?
Absolutely, Judy. I'll jot it down. I'll check and see which groups you're already getting, and we'll make sure that you get the extra resources. Okay.
Okay, I'm in Inverness. It's the,
Got it. Okay. No, that's good. That's helpful for me to know. It makes it easier to find. So that's good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy. You take care. We'll be
thank you,
thinking of
everyone. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop our